Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namaha. Om Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Please sit. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Some new faces, some old faces, some really old faces. You can't hear me? Can you hear me at the back? They can hear you. So we're having a slightly different program today, and thank you all for coming out. Many of you who don't know me don't know what you're getting into. We're going to be talking about mindful awareness meditation, a workshop on it. Many of you have heard the term mindfulness or mindful meditation, but notice I have a word awareness put in close quotes, put in brackets. The reason for that is most of you who are coming here for classes regularly have enough Vedanta, know enough about Vedanta, and three fundamental aspects of Vedanta, or Vedanta teaches us or tells us about, is the jiva, the individual, the jagat, the world, and Ishvara, God. So this is an interplay of three aspects of Vedanta. But then Vedanta also talks about Brahman, which is consciousness. And it throws a bomb and says, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara are all mithya, not false, not as real as Brahman or consciousness. And awareness is another word for consciousness or that Brahman. So when I give this talk in a very secular way, I will not go into so much explanation of awareness because most people who don't have any Vedanta background, it doesn't matter to them. So the bigger bombshell Vedanta throws is that you as an individual, you as a jiva, the essential nature of you as an individual is not separate from that Brahman or from that consciousness. So for us to know that, we first need to know who we are. Who is the jiva? Who is the individual? How does the individual interact with this world, with the jagat? And Ishvara is a whole different ballgame. So these mindfulness meditation or mindful awareness techniques, at least the ones that we had this class prior to the pandemic, we were doing regular classes, is basically to help us build practices where we can, one, learn to understand ourselves in a very personal, intimate way. Some of you might think your spouse knows you really well, or you know your children really well. Not always the case. First, we need to know who we are, not at a Vedantic level, but at a very worldly level. How do I interact with the world? How do I interact with my own emotions and my thoughts? How do I interact with God? So unless we learn to understand ourselves a little better, it's going to be harder to really understand our connection, our essential nature as Brahman. So a lot of these mindful practices that we do is really to help us understand ourselves better, psychologically, emotionally, physically. How many of you might have an ache or a pain, and you kind of ignore it, and then it flares up and becomes worse. So these are the aspects of mindful awareness meditation that we're going to touch upon briefly today. And I'm just going to change the position of my chair so that I don't get a pain in the neck. I might be a pain in the neck, but I don't want to get one. Are you guys okay to see the slides here? Okay. So there's going to be the outline of the workshop is tons of slides, and I do not take credit for any of them because I'm not as talented as the zillions of people who put them up on the internet. But I'm hoping it'll just be fun for all of us, and then we'll take a small break and then do an actual practice. So meditation, it's not what you think. No laughs yet, okay. I thought this was really funny. So you see this, when you're thinking and you have tons of thoughts in your head, look at that guy's face. Most of us don't even realize how much stress we carry in our faces, in our bodies, when we are stressed out. We might have a mental, an emotional stressor or something in the mind that is stressing, but it manifests in the body. And we don't even pay attention to that. And then as your thoughts get lesser and lesser, this is where we all want to be. So why meditate? Many, many reasons, and many times when, I think last time also when we did an impromptu class here, when I asked, why do you meditate? So many reasons, right? I want to get peaceful, I want to get calm, whatever. Traditionally, meditation has been used as part of prayer in pretty much all world religions. In fact, in the Hindu religion, many rituals incorporate a piece of meditation as part of the ritual. The idea of a ritual is you're not just doing physical ritual, I mean by a homa or a yajna, a fire ritual. You're just not mechanically doing things, putting things in the fire. The priest will tell you, do this, do that. But the idea is that your mind and heart are involved in that practice. So meditation is very commonly used as part of most rituals in Hinduism. Some people want to improve their focus, especially children. Meditation helps in improving focus. And I found this cartoon, which this guy is saying, if the average attention span is 8 seconds, why are most commercials so long? And this guy is already lost, asking what is the question. And here we have a parent chiding the child. Enough with the games, have you done your homework yet? And we have focus groups. And you see here, does this scene remind you of your home at dinner time? When you have family and kids visiting? Usually, it's very funny when you have children, your kids are visiting back from home. People are sitting in the same room and messaging each other. So the child will send a message to the parent, or the parent will send a message. Usually, I'm hoping you as parents and grandparents don't encourage that behavior by doing it yourself. But this is very common. Technology is great. Everything comes with its side effects, with its pros and its cons. Meditation for health. So you've had a recent doctor's visit, and the doctor tells you the disease, I'll give it to you straight, this disease is almost impossible to pronounce. And then another doctor says it's your choice, medicate or meditate. It's not as simple as that. Many, many illnesses require both, require medication and meditation. And people sometimes make the mistake and hold on to their thinking, maybe a little rigidly. Oh, I don't, and this happens in, I think more in men as they grow older. Forgive me, I'm not being sexist or biased. I'll bring up women's stuff also later. I'm fine, I don't need to take medicines. Or somebody who has depression or is not feeling well, no, I'm fine, I don't need to go for meditation. I don't need to take any stress reduction classes. Anger. People have anger and you tell them, suggest, maybe you need an anger management class. What happens? They get even more angry, right? So when you have that diagnosis from the doctor, suddenly you say, okay, maybe your stress is high. You say, okay, maybe I should start trying meditation. Meditation to reduce stress. If you are a working woman and have children, this could be your day. This could be how you feel during a normal day. You have your to-do list. You have a baby crying. You have gardening or plumbing. Oh, this is plumbing. This probably presumes the husband is not really helping out in the house, or they can't afford to have a plumber. You have to make food. You have to save. Maybe you're taking a course. I think these are books. And you have to earn money, whatever care in the house, and it's going to affect your physical health. Children, especially post-pandemic, extremely susceptible to stress because it's just, those of you who had young children during the pandemic, you were working from home, children were there full-time from home, it was not easy. So children go through stresses, and many times we downplay that. Especially for those of us who grew up in India, said, oh, I didn't have this. I didn't have this growing up. What's the big deal? Somebody said something rude in the school. What's the big deal? They'll get over it. Unfortunately, children growing up in this country face a very different culture than most of us did growing back in India. So we need to learn to handle that differently so that our child can be successful. And this looks a little bit like me, because I'm usually doing emails, but many of you can relate to this. A lot of work gets done through emails, and that email list never seems to end. Meditation to cultivate positive thoughts. So sometimes people say, I have a lot of negativity in my head. I have a lot of things that I don't like going on in my thinking, so let me learn to be positive. So here this girl is trying to meditate, and she's trying to say, I am happy, I am happy, I am happy, using it as a mantra. And here you see the effect. This girl is saying, my blood bank balance is negative, my blood test results are negative, even the temperature outside is negative, not today. How am I supposed to have positive thoughts? Which is true. Positive thinking is good, but only to a certain extent. Meditation for relaxation. This is, many people want to do meditation to feel relaxed. Relaxation actually ends up being a byproduct, a side effect of meditation. But in many mindfulness techniques, we specifically cultivate, I would call it the art of relaxation. Some people don't know how to relax. Do any of you have that problem? You're pointing, yeah, some people have that problem, right? You get a few minutes away from your work, away from your family. You've done everything you needed to do for the day, and what do you end up doing? Sleeping? Sleeping is great. Sleeping is great. But how do you end up? More work. Check your emails, check your phones, think of projects. And for some people, it's just a bad habit that they form, but for others, it could be some illness that needs to be addressed. So this guy is being told, this woman is being told to relax. Obviously, her body posture doesn't say she's anywhere close to relaxation. And this woman is trying to relax, but look at her face again. You're sitting for meditation, trying to relax, not happening. And this is very American. So this patient is telling the doctor, I'm learning how to relax, doctor, but I want to relax better and faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation. This is a very American, right now, give it to me right now attitude. Relaxation doesn't work like this, right? Relaxation doesn't work like this. Relaxation is actually letting go. Letting go of a lot of things. And we won't talk about that at this time. Some people want inner peace or mental peace. They want to relax for mental peace. And this guy is trying to relax, to meditate in front of an altar, and says, damn it, Gloria, here I'm meditating, attaining all this inner peace and joy, and you interrupt just to find out what the hell I want for dinner. Not a very peaceful attitude, right? I like this guy. So the wise guy in the boat is telling the driver or the rower, whoever rows the boat, the key to inner peace, a landline. Give up your cell. I know it's not possible for most people, but really some of the technology that has come has increased our stress level, can increase our stress level and our anxiety, but we can learn ways to cope with that. Some people want to meditate to experience bliss, inner bliss, and that's very common, especially people who follow yoga, and I'm just pointing that out, but not others also. So here you have this person sitting to meditate, to experience this bliss, and this is something like going into nirvikalpaka samadhi. And at the end, there's a doubt, do I still exist? Obviously, the bliss hasn't worked. And then what happens after this blissful experience? You open your eyes and you have your 5-year-old screaming at you. So it doesn't really work. So there are a whole bunch of health benefits which we all know of. Excuse me. I think my glasses just broke. It lowers blood pressure, heart disease, helps fight heart disease, helps depression, anxiety, improves focus, which we saw just a few slides back. And there are many, many popular ways to meditate. One is emptying the mind. Very common, when you sit to meditate, your mind needs to be empty. So this person, notice they've not even shown who the person is, says, oh my gosh, I've got it, emptiness. And I says, wait, is this emptiness? Can this be emptiness if I'm experiencing it as emptiness? Okay, this is definitely not emptiness. No, it's a little empty now. Yeah, here, emptiness. Okay, wait a minute. Is this emptiness? So emptiness doesn't really work for an extended period of time because the nature of the mind is to have thoughts. And another way is having no thoughts. Meditate so that you don't have thoughts. And this guy begins with no thoughts, no thoughts. Notice, as he's thinking, no thoughts, no thoughts, the thoughts are getting bigger and bigger. And also, look at his face. He's obviously quite stressed out, trying not to have thoughts. And then they'll tell you you need to have one thought, which is kind of okay, but it depends on the thought. So here you have this person asking, how do you keep one thought in your mind for this long? It's so hard. And very blissfully, this person is saying, dinner, dinner, dinner. Or somebody else is saying, chocolates and shoes. You pick your fancy. There are many different types of meditation also. And most of us know that those of us who come here regularly on Saturdays for Swamiji's classes, meditation classes, we know he does a different technique every week. And that's really because no two of us are alike in anything. So what technique will work for you may not work for me. What technique works for you on one particular day may not be effective the next week. So the idea is really to throw out a whole bunch, throw out is a wrong word, to offer a whole bunch of techniques so you get to choose and decide which one works for you. I found this slide which says there are 7 types of meditation: mindfulness, loving kindness, transcendental meditation. Some of you might have been trained in that. Zen meditation, Kundalini yoga, one of the most misunderstood forms of meditation. And to really get a good understanding of it, I put Swamiji's video title, Kundalini Yoga as envisioned by the ancient yogis. It's a really good video. If you're interested in Kundalini, there are tons of stuff out there. But I think this is probably, not that I'm biased, it's probably the best resource to really learn what Kundalini is about. Then there is spiritual meditation, probably referring to our bhakti meditation or devotional forms. And there's vipassana, which is a kind of a offshoot of mindfulness, or I should say mindfulness may be a little offshoot of vipassana. So what type of meditation you pick and you choose at any given day or at any particular time really depends on what your goal is at that particular time. If your goal is to increase your focus, then perhaps a mantra japa would help. If your goal is to understand your mind, then a different kind of meditation might help. If your goal is to observe the world, a different kind of meditation helps. So what meditation you choose, and it doesn't have to be the same every time because our goals are not the same all the time. We can vary our practices depending on what we need on that particular day. So this is, many of you have seen this book, a book by Swamiji. He's done a very thorough job in talking about the different types of meditations. There's also a video that he's produced, I think with 41 short exercises. And he basically divides meditation into 4 categories: concentration, observation, contemplation, and devotion. And here is another categorization by Swami Paramarthanandaji, who's another senior disciple of Puja Swami Dayanandaji, where he classifies meditation as relaxation meditation, concentration, expansion, and Vedantic meditation. So now we'll come to mindful awareness meditation. And I'm going to just briefly cover where it originated, what was the origin, the science behind it, and its applications. So mindfulness meditation really is an extension, or I would say a westernization of very ancient Buddhist and Hindu practices that were practiced thousands of years ago. The problem, not the problem, so in the West, we always want to have proof. And in a way that's good. We want to have scientific validation for techniques like meditation, yoga, is it really, or even supplements, taking supplements. So in the late 70s, early 80s, this is Professor Kabat-Zinn. He is a emeritus professor at Harvard School, a neuroscientist. And he used to run a stress reduction, a pain reduction clinic at the hospital, where people would come in with chronic pain and chronic illness, and he ran a program for them. That's where it developed. But before that, so in the 70s and 80s, meditation, yoga, acupressure, Tai Chi, all these were considered soft science. So if you're a hardcore scientist, you just poo-pooed all this stuff because there wasn't enough evidence-based data to support the effects of these practices. So Kabat-Zinn conducted an experiment for people with psoriasis. And if you're not aware, psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. It begins with skin, mostly skin disease. But in severe cases, it can progress to psoriatic arthritis, and a very crippling disease. So what he did was, and the treatment for psoriasis at that time was mainly exposure to light, phototherapy or light therapy. So he took a bunch of patients who had psoriasis, and he put them in a light box, which is what was done at that time, and exposed them for 10 minutes a day for X amount of time to this light. And he took the control subjects who also had psoriasis, put them in the same box, but this other subject had, and this was not the control, so they had, besides being exposed to the light therapy, they had a 10-minute audio listening of a mindfulness meditation technique. So the group that had only the light box and the group who had the light box with the mindfulness meditation. And the results were astounding. Those who had the meditation along with their sun treatment, light treatment, did very well. I don't remember the percentages of the study, but it was so well that even he was surprised, couldn't believe the effects, that the people with psoriasis, they were able to manage or handle their pain or their condition better. So the study was repeated over several clinics and over several centers in the country, all with the same result. So there was some evidence beginning to show that mindfulness helps, not in the removing of the disease. Obviously, for removing the disease or helping the symptoms, you need medication or some other form of treatment. But it helped in how the patients perceived what their illness was about. And that's a big deal. For people who have chronic pain or any chronic condition, you might want to pay attention to your mental chatter. How your mind thinks. For example, if you have a pain in the knee and you're saying, oh my gosh, this is the worst pain I've ever had, it pulls you down. If you have a pain in the knee and then say, okay, there's a pain in the knee, let me go about doing whatever I can. Your perception of that pain completely changes. So that is what this study was showing. And he wrote many books. This was, I think, one of the first books he wrote called Full Catastrophe Living, using the wisdom of your body and mind to face stress, pain, and illness. Because really at that time it was focused on pain and chronic pain and pain management. And this is a book, if you've not read it, you might want to look at it. It's called Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's very simple, one-page notes pretty much on bringing you back to the practice, telling you to be mindful. So there's more about him. So the science was beginning to build at that time. And there were many, he put out many CDs. Actually, Kabat-Zinn designed this MBSR, for those of you who've not heard it, mindfulness-based stress reduction. It was an 8-week program specifically to help people dealing with anxiety, pain, or any kind of illness. And pretty much you would have 1 hour of formal meditation every day for the 8 weeks. There would be reading material and there would be reinforcement. Even if you don't have any major illness or pain, I would highly recommend to take this course. And now there are many centers and many online resources that offer this course. I took this course several years back, and it was very eye-opening for me to really understand, even in a normal day-to-day living, how much mindfulness can help. And then there was the media popularization. Mindfulness was made the cover of National Geographic and Time magazine in the early 20s. Politics came into mindfulness. This is the former Congressman Tim Ryan from Ohio, who actually conducted weekly mindfulness sessions for his members of his cabinet, or whatever you want to call it, and he also wrote this book. A little later, we have more mindfulness in politics, and this book has contributions by many leading experts in the field. This book came up a few years back, one by Alan Wolfelt. This book was very thoughtful because it talks about how to use mindfulness techniques to overcome grief and loss. And many times, most of us who lost a loved one or who are suddenly facing a very challenging, maybe caretaker for a person with terminal illness, a lot of good material in there. So you might want to think about looking at that. You might recognize this face, Dan Harris, who was a retired co-anchor at ABC News. He actually had a mid-air panic attack when he was on screen. And after that, he took up to mindfulness, and the book he wrote is 10% Happier. Mindfulness is not going to make us 100% happy. Any meditation is not going to make us 100% happy. No meditation is going to make us 100% happy all the time. That's the key. So his book is just 10% Happier, and he talks about how he tamed his voice, reduced stress, etc., and then he was able to come back on air. A couple years later, there was a 60-minute session delving a little deeper into the science of meditation, where Anderson Cooper, had some electrodes connected to his head, and they measured various wavelengths. Here, they're doing a walking meditation. We can do walking meditation. We all walk. We can do it mindfully. And mindfulness at work and at businesses. Here you have this book by David Gellis, who says how meditation is changing businesses. And very quickly, a lot of corporations, corporate companies, Apple, Google, Intel, Facebook, a whole bunch of them, began offering mindfulness practices at their workplace. Of course, the motivation of these businesses might have been a little different than what your motivation here is. One, it made people happier, workers happier, but happier workers, better productivity. So this, and I think many companies are still offering some form of it through their HR departments. There was a BBC article or a clip on how mindfulness was being taught in schools at a very young age. And I wish we had got some of any kind of meditation when we were growing up. I'm sure most of you feel that. It just makes you better handle the situations of life and cope with life better if you have the tools. We don't have the tools till we are 50, 60, 70, whatever the age, but at least we have the tools now. Here's a fairly new, there was an NPR news article. This was during COVID, and it says how using meditation and mindfulness to help through this very, very difficult, very challenging period for all of us. And a more recent article on New York Post in how, so obviously the science is building up, so how the brain actually changes with meditation. And of course, celebrities jump on the bandwagon. I'm sure if you see a celebrity, maybe not you, but the younger people, if you see a celebrity that you recognize is doing this something, very likely they're going to follow it. I don't recognize any of these people. I don't know their names. Perhaps that shows my interest. So the science is improving and increasing. So how it works, a bunch of different areas of the brain. It helps to regulate attention. It helps to improve empathy and compassion. It helps to regulate emotions. And this, of course, is, I think most of you know I'm in science, so all these things interest me. If it doesn't interest you, you can mindfully close your eyes and ignore the next couple of slides. So this is a nature reviews. They're mapping much more deeply, much more intricately, the pathways that are involved in mindfulness or any kind of meditation. And then this is a little older, we don't have the more recent statistics on how many people around the world were researching meditation and the articles that were published. This red is mindfulness, the yellow is yoga, and the blue is just other kinds of meditation. And NIH funding for such studies went up in 2014. Of course, today it's a whole different ballgame. I don't think we're getting NIH funding for most normal research, so we'll see. But the key is really to tell you that science, the scientific world, has started to take this as a real thing. They're not poo-pooing it anymore. And another, how mindfulness, better performance. And then there's this graph shows the number of newspaper articles and the number of actual scientific articles. The number of publications that went up, this is a more recent 2020, and how many other papers cite these original articles. Okay, so the applications of mindfulness, a whole bunch of them, and this is just a partial list. You can add a zillion to them. So beginning with health and wellness, all kinds of pain clinic, weight management, pain management, stress management, cancer care. So many hospitals which offer cancer treatment also offer the MBSR program for these patients to help them to help them understand their illness and disease a little better. In schools, as we saw, and children are getting, especially for special needs, or children who have some kind of anxiety or hyper attention deficiency, those are really helpful techniques. In workplace, in hospitals, when the pandemic was going on, so many of the nurses and the doctors and people working in hospitals had caregiver burnout. It was very predictable that it's going to affect their lives. You know, they're human too. So meditation can help with that. In everyday life, in our personal, just day to day, whatever we want to do, our relationship building. How would it be if you had a perfect, very mindful relationship with your spouse, with your children, with your neighbors, with anybody you meet? I'm painting the ideal picture. It's never going to be that way, but we can all try to make ourselves better. So now the key elements of mindfulness, and this is what really makes mindful awareness meditation differ from other practices. So one is being in the present moment. Two is the intention. What is the intention of the practice? And where is the attention? This is a very key aspect, is to learn to develop non-judgmental awareness. We are constantly categorizing things. I like, I don't like. We are constantly categorizing people. I like this person, I don't like this person. It may not be as strong as I like, don't like, but anytime you look at somebody, just watch your mind. What are you thinking about? Many times it's accompanied with a judgment. It can be a very subtle judgment, but we don't tend to pay attention to that. So mindfulness helps us develop this practice of non-judgmental awareness. And there are both formal and informal practices which make it rather different from other practices. I think some people are feeling warm. Manish, would you mind turning the fan on? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the first was being in the present moment. And what are the obstacles we face to being in the present moment? If you go to a spiritual fair, there's a long line for past life reading. We all want to know what our past was. And then there's a longer line for future telling. How many of the people go to astrologers? Hey, I want to know what my future is. Will my son get married? When will my child get whatever? So, but look at this present moment. Nobody is really there in that line. And this is classic. Most of us do this. You can perhaps relate to this now. I wasted all day today worrying about the yesterday that nobody will remember tomorrow. Very true, right? We do spend a lot of time worrying today, thinking about the past or the future. And what really pulls us down, what takes us to the past, is regrets of what should have, could have been, and a big ball, big iron ball of guilt that we kind of, hangs on to us. So this doctor is telling the guy, age, cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes have all taken their toll on your heart. But the primary damage was done by an ex-girlfriend 60 years ago. Any of you holding on to grudges from 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Many times I've noticed couples, especially Indian couples, if they've had an arranged marriage, they will tell their spouse, your mother or your father did this at our wedding time 50 years back. What's the point? What's the point? And then that brings the frustration and the anxiety, and you really can't do anything about something that you didn't do, somebody else did, 50 years back, 40 years back, 30 years back, 1 year back, 1 month back, 1 week back, 1 day back, 1 hour back. So why do we dwell on that so much? And here this guy is saying at the psychiatrist's office, I know I'm just a weather reporter, doc, but I feel guilty every time it rains. We take guilt, we take ownership of guilt, whether we want to, whether it's needed or not. Why do we want to take ownership of guilt? And this guy is even more classic. I feel guilty, I don't have more guilt feelings. And then the future. We are constantly worrying about the future. This woman is so much in the future. She says, I can't worry about that now. I'm worrying about something else. And most of us, as we grow older, we do tend to start worrying about the future. Perhaps when you're younger, it may not be that big a deal. Worrying, and that's, I think, the next slide, won't stop the bad stuff from happening. It just stops you from enjoying the good stuff or the present. I love this Peanuts cartoon, which is so true. Every time we worry, if you can think about this, perhaps you'll feel a little less worried and anxious. So the second aspect of mindfulness, or the first aspect, I think, being in the present moment. This guy is in the present moment. He's reading how to be in the moment. But what is the book next to him? How to be in the moment after that? Not really being in the present moment. This wise guy is saying, live each moment, practice being mindful, be present. Hey, hold on, I'm getting a call. How many of us do this? You're in an intense, meaningful conversation with somebody, face to face, and then you see your phone ding. How many of you come here for meditation classes, Swamiji's classes, and look at your phone at least once during the meditation? Let's be honest, there's no judgment here. Nobody. I am very happy. It's just our minds, we just get into bad habits. We just get into bad patterns of thinking. We don't need to be attached to our technology, to our instrument. If there's an emergency, somebody will call you after the meditation. And this woman wants to be in the moment. She wants to learn to live in this moment, just not this moment for her. She wants to be in some other moment, like a holiday on the beach. The second aspect of mindfulness, intention and attention, I think these dogs have it better than us, says the key to meditation is learning to stay. That really is as simple as that. Just staying with your thought, with your object of meditation. And the very important aspect of mindfulness is compassionate and non-judgmental awareness. And we see here a juror telling the verdict out. We find the defendant guilty. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Very non-judgmental. And then you have this guy outside the door saying, I'm so glad that I'm not as judgmental as those self-righteous, pig-headed do-gooders I have to work with. I don't think he understood the meaning of non-judgmental. And the last aspect of mindfulness, which is very different from other meditation practices, is this formal practice and informal practice. And what formal practice is really what we do every week when we meet here. We are sitting down, or perhaps you're doing at home. We take a chunk of time from our day, set it for a formal practice. We sit down, whatever the practice is, mantra japa, or your breath, whatever the practice is, which is great. It's great to start building on that, just so that we can develop a routine, a habit of practice. But mindfulness has practices that you can be doing 24/7, literally 24/7. You can be listening to someone very mindfully. You can be talking with somebody very mindfully. You could just be sitting by yourself or walking and cultivating loving kindness very mindfully. You can walk, either paying attention to your step, paying attention to your breathing, have a mantra going, or look at the nature around you. And then you can fall asleep very mindfully. And I've had people tell me, when I used to do these classes, I've done them at other courses at other locations, and I got, I don't know whether to take it as a compliment or not. This elderly woman came up and told me, I love your classes. I love your voice. It's like so soothing. I just fall off to sleep so nicely. I listen to it every night before I go to sleep. It works for her, why not? Okay, so what happens when we sit to meditate? Normally, this is what happens. There's a lot of past going on. Our guilt, our regret, our sadness, our bitterness, our anger, our envy, all the doshas, the defects that we don't want to have. I shouldn't call it defects, all the qualities we don't want to cultivate, we don't want to imbibe, they pop up. And then also what pops up is a lot of future. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, fear. A lot of this pops up the moment we sit to meditate. thoughts pop up. It is absolutely normal. The mind is meant for thoughts to come. So this person is sitting for meditation. The main thought was supposed to be awakening. And she starts with, I don't know if it's a he or she, let's be gender neutral. What a blessed life. I wonder if I'm going to faint. My leg is about to fall off to sleep. And then some attachment, income. Is there enough oxygen in here? Do I have garlic breath? Be here now. Suddenly Om pops up. Concentrate pops up, all these keywords. Be present. And what is that from? Do, 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 do. Some tune sticks in your head. Let's clear my mind. I am one. I need to remember. If I had to throw up, what would I do? I really feel like eating. There is a mosquito in my ear. Actually, this picture does have a mosquito in the ear. I didn't notice that till now. And then suddenly peace. And then that guy was really cute. Or how about somebody else who's meditating, settling down for a perfect meditation. Enlightenment must be imminent. I can feel it coming. And then the chatter, blah, blah, blah. And then little dozing off, little drooling maybe. Oh my gosh, I totally zonked off. How embarrassing. Now I'm really going to get serious. So look at the expression change in the faces. Getting serious, there is a plate of cookies in the middle of the carpet. So looking at the design of the carpet. Wait a minute, those patterns on the carpet are turning electrical blue. Yep, they're flowers now. Wow, was I really hallucinating? Only a few minutes left. The meditation is going to end. Obviously, no meditation happened. And the person says, okay, better luck next time. Distractions when we sit down to meditate, very, very normal. This guy who's sitting to meditate is thinking about himself in a fancy car, whereas this cat is thinking about food. Somebody who is very busy at work has a bunch of things to think about. This woman is meditating on Om, but it very quickly changes to food. Distractions, all kinds of distractions. This guy begins with, did I remember to loosen my belt? So this guy's sitting down and meditating. I didn't. Oh, well, too late now. It seems like it's getting tighter somehow. Just ignore it. You know, we do that, right? Ignore all the thoughts. It's definitely getting tighter. My tummy hurts. Should I loosen it? It will probably start clinking. What will other people think? He's taking off his pants. That's what they'll think. No, it's not worth it. And then he said, how long? So all this has happened in a fraction of a second, few seconds. How long has it been? I can't breathe. And then the fear, are there any important organs here? Under there, I'm sure they're getting damaged. If this belt gets any tighter, I'm going to look like an ant. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not wearing a belt at all. So all these distractions, more distractions happening. I'm not going to read through this. You know in your mind what are the distractions that come up. And every time you sit to meditate, they can be different, depending on what's going on for you at that time. Doubts. Doubts at meditation also very normal. This guy asking his fellow monk, am I not thinking what I think I'm not thinking? And this other monk is asking him, are you meditating or fantasizing? This girl is very serious about meditation. So she's starting with Om. It quickly changes to And then she's questioning, am I in the moment? Doubting, is this the moment? Om pops in again. How will I know if I'm in the moment? And then she says, I'm hungry. I want chips. The moment is gone. The Om is gone. And here's another girl sitting for a guided meditation. It says, relax your forehead, unclench your jaw, relax your tongue. She has a doubt there. Wait, where is my tongue supposed to go? Does it just float there? And then she's checking it out and she says, oh, this meditation isn't working. I'm sure for most of you this doesn't happen because you've all been coming here for years and or have your own practice of meditation. And more doubts? He just says, keep breathing. Is it possible to die of itchiness? There's a bunch of mosquitoes or flies around him, and he can hear at least 250 of them. And he's sitting really, very rigidly. Look at his face. And he's saying, is this the path to liberation? Obviously, if you're not comfortable in your posture, you don't have to sit rigid. You can move. The key is to know that you're moving. The key in mindfulness is to move deliberately. And that's a skill we develop. Dozing off, very common during meditation. So we have this person dozing off and then snoring. And this person is saying, I used to worry that I'd fall asleep when meditating. Now I look forward to it. If this is your take, you're falling asleep every time you meditate, it shows you're not getting enough sleep. So pick another time, pick another kind of meditation, something so that you don't fall asleep. And this person saying his meditation apnea is actually useful. It helps keep the others awake. And it has happened in class here too. There will, when you're very calm and settled down, your breathing becomes slow. You start, just relaxing, settling down, and snoring is possible. What to do at that time? If the person next to you is snoring, it's always like you're on uncertain boundary. You don't know what to do at that time, right? Just and if it's your spouse or somebody you've come with, or anybody, you can just tap the person gently so that they wake up without making a big deal of it. Snoring is normal, without judging it. And then there is more thoughts and more going off to sleep. And the practices. So the three aspects, key aspects, intention and attention. So this guy's New Year's resolution sets the intention to meditate. And the attention is usually an object of the meditation. This woman, this cartoon is showing picking numbers. The second aspect is bringing the mind back. This monk is asking his own mind, where are you going? Actually, this is something that Pujya Swami Dayanandaji has said he just hit it on the nail. One line definition of meditation, bringing your mind back. What we bring it to varies, but the idea is to bring it back. And then mindfulness helps us to develop this compassion and non-judgmental awareness. So this guy is already kind of low self-esteem, and he's saying, I forgot to take my medicine this morning. And this guy says, is it for your face? And he says, no, it's for my low self-esteem. And this other guy's response is, you're not taking anything for your face? How ridiculously non-compassionate that is. And how many times we do that? We may not be as direct. We're probably as direct with our family members or people we are close to because we take them for granted. You might not say this to a complete stranger, but we do. We are very harsh on our loved ones. We're very harsh on ourselves. That's something that we all need to work on. And here you have this dog being harsh on himself, saying he's not exercising self-compassion. And here we are. I choose, this is criticism, and you cultivate compassion. So I choose a new inner voice. That's what I was alluded to earlier. What is the talk going on in your head? What are the words that go on in your head? So now would be a good time. We are going to have an intentional break for a few minutes. In this maybe 10 minutes, we'll come back at 11:15. In this time, watch your attention, watch your mind. This is an exercise prelude to the actual practice we're going to do. Watch your intention, and then watch the self-talk. Watch your own mind and what it is saying. So we will take a 10-minute break, and bathroom break, water break, mindful break. Just see just see if it makes a difference to you. Okay.